Yo, what's up? Dr. Swole here, MD, bodybuilder, back with another video. Today I'm going to be giving you my top 10 muscle building priorities. This is going to be really beneficial for anyone who wants to improve their physique in terms of muscle growth or fat loss and wants compact, high-level information. Quick outline for today. I'm not going to order these in terms of importance, but I've organized them in terms of training, nutrition, and recovery. These are going to be the three main pillars you want to think about when trying to optimize your programming. If you've been enjoying my content, make sure you smash that like button, hit subscribe, and let's get into it. All right, the first big muscle building priority we're going to talk about is progressive overload. Progressive overload is the most important factor when it comes to ensuring muscle growth. And that is, you need to present a greater and greater stimulus over time to ensure continued hypertrophy. Now, you can make your training harder in a few different ways. You can add weight, reps, or sets. My overarching recommendation for progressive overload is to progress your multi-set 6 to 12 rep max as quickly as possible in a sustainable way. When I say your multi-set 6 to 12 rep max, I mean how much weight can you lift over multiple sets of 6 to 12 reps. If this is going up over time, you're most likely building muscle. This should be your main guide to monitor progress, and you want it to progress as quickly as possible in a sustainable way. When I say sustainable, I just mean that you shouldn't be adding weight too quickly in a way that will make you stall in a matter of weeks. Now, there are a few ways you can set up your progression schemes. For example, single, double, and triple progression. Single progression is where you progress one variable at a time. For example, just adding weight and keeping your reps and sets the same. Double progression is where you increase one variable before increasing another. For example, using the same weight and going from 8 to 12 reps and then coming back to 8 reps with more weight. And triple progression is where you progress all three variables of sets, reps, and weight across your training cycle. For beginners, I'd recommend using single and double progression. Okay, the second big muscle building priority is to optimize your program variables. These are my current recommendations. In terms of volume, which is how many sets you do per muscle group per week, I'd recommend finding the optimal number of sets for each muscle group. This is going to be different for each muscle group, so you'll have to experiment to find the sweet point of volume. A good place to start is somewhere between 10 to 20 sets per muscle group per week. Now, in terms of frequency, I'd recommend training each muscle group twice per week. The total number of days you spend in the gym will depend on how long you want your workouts to be. For beginners, I'd recommend starting off with 3 to 4 days per week, and more advanced athletes will likely need to be in the gym 4 to 6 times per week. In terms of relative intensity, which is how close you go to failure, I recommend going to about 1 to 2 reps in reserve. Now, failure training is something you might want to try, especially if you don't have that much time to work out. If you're going to train to failure, I typically recommend saving it for the last set for a muscle group within that workout. Now, in terms of rep ranges, I recommend focusing on the 6 to 20 rep range. And you should have about 2/3 of your volume or your weekly sets in the 6 to 12 rep range. Third muscle building priority we're going to talk about is exercise selection and execution. In terms of choosing exercises for muscle growth, there's no right answer in terms of the best exercises. But I'd recommend focusing on heavy compound movements that can be loaded heavily over 6 to 8 reps. This is just going to be the most efficient way to make sure that you cover your main muscle groups and train effectively. In terms of exercise execution, it's important for you to have strict form and a full range of motion. Strict form is going to make sure that you have consistency so that it's easier to track progress over time, and it will help avoid injuries. Using a full range of motion is going to be the best way to get the most out of your movements. Okay, fourth muscle building priority is to titrate your stimulus. And by this I mean that you want to make sure you're training hard enough. Couple things here. First of all, you should be checking your RIR. You want to make sure that you're really getting to within 1 to 2 reps of failure. Beginners tend to be bad at estimating how far away they are from failure. So it might be helpful to actually train to failure every once in a while to make sure that you're actually getting to within the RIR that you think you are. In terms of making sure that you're producing enough of a stimulus, you should aim to feel some disruption and pump in the muscles that you're training. In terms of disruption, I mean local fatigue in the muscle you're training and a burn. And a pump doesn't directly correlate to hypertrophy, but it can be a good indicator that you're training well. You can also use soreness to guide how hard you're training. You should aim to be sore but avoid overlapping soreness. Using these markers as feedback, you should be able to change all the previous variables we talked about in your hypertrophy program. Calories are absolutely key to know about if you want to improve your body composition. And the basic principle is calories in versus calories out. That is, your calorie balance will determine your weight gain or weight loss. If your weight is staying stable, then by definition, you're at your maintenance calories. And you can use the 3,500 calories per pound rule to calculate weight changes. So if you gained 1 pound over a week, that means you were in a 3,500 calorie surplus across that week, and you are in a 500 calorie surplus per day. And this works for weight loss too. To get a handle on calories, I'd recommend counting your calories occasionally using Google or an app. Next muscle building priority is protein and protein timing. Protein is going to be the most important macronutrient you want to focus on when you're getting into bodybuilding. My current recommendation is to aim for 0.72 to 1.0 grams of protein per pound of body weight per day, and you should spread this protein out evenly over 4 to 6 meals 3 to 5 hours apart. There is some research suggesting we should aim for about at least 4 meals per day for optimal muscle growth, and the upper limit of 6 mainly just comes from practical considerations. It's important to know here that you can be pretty flexible in terms of your meal timing. It's good to know that you don't need to be stuffing down protein shakes every 3 hours on the dot. Once you set your protein and your calories, I'd recommend getting the remainder of your calories from carbs and fats. In general, I don't think it matters that much in terms of the exact partitioning between fats and carbs, although if you're more advanced, I'd recommend at least trying out a high carb, low fat approach. The next big point I want to talk about is that you should recomp if you can. Body recomposition is the process of building muscle and losing fat at the same time, and it's a very efficient way to improve your physique. Now, not everyone can recomp. The people who can recomp are those who are in their first 1 to 2 years of serious training, people who are returning from a layoff, those who are obese, and people who make a significant improvement in their programming. The overarching principle here is that if you want to recomp, you need to present a novel and superior stimulus to what you were doing before. In order to recomp, basically just set up everything as I've talked about before this and just manipulate your calories. You'll want to set your calories at maintenance or up to a 1.5% body weight loss per week. This is actually a really big range. And looking at the research we have now, we're actually finding that people can recomp in a pretty big deficit. Now, as you become more advanced, it will become harder and harder to recomp in larger deficits. And eventually you may not be able to recomp anymore. What happens when you can't recomp anymore? You switch to bulking and cutting. Let's talk about that next. Now, bulking and cutting is going to be the next tool that will help you take your muscle growth to the next level. Basically, when you gain weight when you're bulking, you'll put on some muscle, but also some fat. And it's pretty much impossible to avoid putting on that fat while you're bulking. Now, the thing is, when you cut, it's actually very possible to lose just fat and hold on to your muscle. So through repeated bulking and cutting, you can slowly put on muscle over time while keeping fat at bay. I recommend that you lean bulk at a conservative rate. That is 1 to 1.5% of your body weight gained per month for beginners, people in their first 1 to 2 years, and then 0.5 to 1% of your body weight gained per month for intermediate or more advanced athletes. And I would recommend that you use mini cuts or short aggressive diets of 2 to 8 weeks in order to stay between 10 to 15% body fat for men and 17 to 15% body fat for women. This second point here is pretty controversial, but this is my current approach. All right, my next big muscle building priority is to optimize your sleep. Recovery is a huge aspect of bodybuilding, and sleep is a big part of it. If you're not sleeping enough or not sleeping well, you're definitely leaving gains on the table. Now, my general recommendation is to aim for at least 7 to 8 hours of sleep per night. I myself sleep 8.5 hours every night. So if you don't have the time, make time. The next point here that I think is underrated is that you should practice sleep hygiene. This is something that can really help you fall asleep more easily and also improve the quality of your sleep. Basically, you're teaching your body that when it's nighttime and when you're in your bed, it's time to sleep. First part of sleep hygiene is having a consistent sleep schedule. The most important thing you can control is having a consistent wake-up time. You should aim to have your wake-up times across the week within about an hour. Next point is to avoid blue light a few hours before bed. Easiest way to do this is to install a blue light blocking app on your laptop and your phone and to avoid watching TV. Lastly, you should keep your bedroom dark and use it only for sleep. Try to remove or cover up any electronic lights and use blackout curtains. Keeping your bed only for sleep and avoiding awake activities like reading or doing work will make sure that you train your body to use the bed for sleep. One more quickfire tip for sleep is to avoid naps and caffeine in the evening. All right, guys, last point and the most important point for success in bodybuilding is consistency and sustainability. Remember that a plan that you can stick to is still the best plan. It takes months to see progress in your physique and years to actually make a transformation. So you really need to be patient and find programming that fits into your life. Think about fitness as a lifestyle and not just a temporary pursuit. Improvement should always be your goal and not some fixed endpoint. It really doesn't matter where you end up as long as you're on the path. That's all for now, guys. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you like the video and leave me a comment below. In particular, what muscle building priorities do you think should have been on the list? Let me know. If you want to learn how to lean bulk properly, check out this playlist where I go through step by step how to set up your lean bulk diet plan. If you got value from this video, I want you to take the link right now and send it to a friend that you think would benefit. Subscribe for more content and we'll see you next time.